Hey, I'm Max, and in my last video I showed how I made a prototype for a car crash simulation game by moving vertices of a mesh. However, it wasn't realistic enough for me and I wanted to improve it. Well, I've been trying every day all day for a week and I've made very little progress. So I thought I would take a break by making a small game that would also allow me to make a video for you guys. I started brainstorming and I came up with this idea of editing the game variables and functions to simulate hacking the game. There's been a few games made with this style, but they usually require you to input actual code, which means you need to know programming to play it. I want to make my game with an interface so that anyone can play it even if you don't know how to code. But I will also keep a few real programming features to make it feel more real and cool. I thought a cool theme to explore this idea would be to have the player be a sort of malware that tries to take control of a computer by taking control of microchips, which are like individual levels, and having the antivirus trying to destroy the player. So you have to avoid the antivirus and hack it to manage to take control of chips and take control of the whole system. I know that's not really what malwares do, but whatever, it's a game. At first I wanted to make the game in C++ because C++ allows you to edit the memory and also the assembly code of the game directly. However, that would only be useful to programmers and even very few programmers because assembly code is very difficult. And I said I wanted to make it so everyone can play it, so instead I chose C# with Unity because C# is a language that allows what's called reflection, which means I can get all of the data inside of a class, edit variables by names and things like that. It doesn't give me as much control as C++, but it gives me enough to create an interface, and it will still allow me to make a game where you have to sort of hack the game. I just have to make the interface that uses reflection, and it should give the player enough powers. I started by making a bunch of sprites. I didn't take too much time for details, but I also tried to make them look pretty good. Then I put them all in Unity to make a basic test map. I immediately started working on the console because that was the main goal of the game. If it didn't work like I planned, then I had to give up this idea. The main difficulty here from a developer perspective is the different type of variables. The variables can be true, false, whole numbers, numbers with decimals, pointers, and more. I have to find a way to display that information to the player and also be careful to not set a value to something that it is not, such as setting a true value to a number variable, because that could crash the game. So I started by making a basic turret that will act as a part of the antivirus in the game, and I made the console display the data inside of the turret class and let the player change it. You can see the turret shoots at the player pretty slow, but if I go to the console and increase the fire rate, it now shoots very fast. If I decrease it, it shoots slow again. I can also mess with other variables like the ammo, reload speed, and damage. Obviously, giving the player access to all of them all of the time would make the game very easy. You could just set the fire rate of every turret to 0 and it's over. So I will add a limited access so only some variables can be seen and edited in each level. This way the game turns into a sort of puzzle game where you try to figure out what to change to let you win the level. You can see that if I make the projectile and damage variable not editable and try to edit them, it says access denied. I can also decide which variables are visible in the console to hide variables that don't make sense to the player, like the prefabs of the projectile, because the player is not going to be able to change the prefab anyway. I could even make puzzles that can be solved by changing a variable, but the name is not shown in the console, so you have to find the name of the variable somewhere in the level and then type it in the console even though it doesn't show up. So with my basic console and turret ready, I made a basic level to test things out. You spawn behind a wall with two turrets shooting at you and a console next to you. You can open up the console, type turrets, and then see there are two turrets, which one do you want to hack? I type 0 because in programming arrays start at 0, so I decided to keep the starting at 0 part. So after I type 0, I see the visible variables. I decide to change the fire rate to 0.1, and just like that the turret on the left starts shooting very slow. Then I go back, this time I choose the turret number 1 and make its projectile speed very slow. Now I can easily walk around the level without getting hit, but I forgot to add the goal you have to reach to finish the level and take control of the chip. I decided to make it a console again, but this time you have to crack a password to finish the level. Pressing a letter on your keyboard will not do anything if it is the wrong letter, but it will insert the letter if it is the right one. So basically you just have to smash your keyboard until you get all of the letters. I will also randomize it so you can't just remember them or read them online if I end up finishing and publishing this game, which is very unlikely looking at my past games that all ended up in the trash. So just like that, you have to clear the way for you to pass without dying and reach the end console and crack the password. Then the chip becomes under your control, deactivating all of the turrets and giving you new powers and access to the next levels. I also made it so the player getting hit reduces its intact code percentage, which is like the HP, and if you go to 0 you lose. And I added Wi-Fi stations where you can go and download and repair your code, so you can heal. So now I can add protected areas that you cannot enter and make it so finishing a chip level unlocks the area, so you can reach the next levels. I will do different puzzles in each one, so each level will have its own challenge, but there might also be some things in between levels, which I think is quite an interesting idea. Also, just having a turret is pretty boring, so I decided to add more things, starting with a simple moving object. They have multiple variables to hack, like where it moves to, at what speed, if it bounces back once it reaches the destination, or if it stays there, and the progress it has made so far. In this level, I made two very strong and unhackable turrets shoot at you. The only thing you can control is the wall. You can either set its speed to make it move directly up, or you can set its progress to be near the end console and then run to it. But be careful if you use the speed method to disable the bounce back first, otherwise it will bounce back once it reaches the end, so when you go to crack the code it will reveal you and you will get shot at by the turrets. Finally, I thought the player had too much time to think and try things. I wanted the game to be a bit more stressful. So I added an antivirus scan that will delete around 10% of your code every time it runs, so you will need to go back to a Wi-Fi station to heal every few minutes at least. So that way you cannot spend minutes in a level trying every possible solution, or at least you will need to leave sometimes to go heal back at a Wi-Fi station. Right now the scan happens every 15 seconds, but obviously this is to show it in the video. I'm thinking maybe 1 or 2 minutes would be better. I tried it out and it definitely makes the level more stressful when you see your health go down over time. That's all I have for today, but I'm really enjoying making this so far, so I think I'll keep working on it for a bit. I have a bunch of ideas of puzzles as well as new features like calling and editing functions, and also self-hack powers to make yourself more resistant or powerful. I'll definitely try making those features and making a new video on this game. So make sure to stay tuned if you like it.